guys, it's Glenn from glenscarcollection.com, and today we're going to learn how Doug DeMuro was wrong about picking the best 6 BMWs of all time. If you don't follow the channel, let me give you a little history. I've owned 8 BMWs, 7 of them are M cars, and if you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. And here's my list of BMWs. So I'm sitting in my current daily driver 2020 M340i xDrive. I've owned 2 E46 M3s, both with a manual transmission, one Laguna Seca Blue, black interior, 6-speed, sunroof delete, one Mystic Blue, black interior coupe, both coupes, 6-speed manual. The Mystic Blue one does have a sunroof. E90 M3, slick top, 6-speed manual, that's with the V8, an M2, a Z3M coupe, a 1 Series M, and an E36. So I think with 8 BMWs, I'm qualified to maybe pick the top 6 BMWs. And Doug DeMuro is a friend of mine. I'm actually in his video, the BMW 1 Series M that he did review back in 2017. He was standing right here in my driveway, and we went to the local office building and filmed that video. So you hear my voice in that video. So Doug and I have been in touch ever since. And this video is really in jest, but Doug hasn't owned many BMWs. I've owned 8 of them, 7 of them M cars. So I think I can give you 6 lists. So again, this is in jest, but so number 6 that Doug picked is the original X5, BMW X5 that came in, I think, model year 2001. Now, I don't know that this makes the top 6, but I really like this choice, and here's why I like this choice. Number 1, you could have got that car with a manual transmission. It's very rare, but you can look in the classifieds. You might be able to find and use one with a manual trans. And actually, I did an autocross sponsored by BMW with this car, and I was impressed with the handling. And I think all the sport SUVs kind of come from this SUV. So you had the Chevy Blazers and the Ford Explorers, but they couldn't handle well at all. The Jeep Grand Cherokees, but the X5 really made a performance handling vehicle. Now, it wasn't an E39 M5 or an E46 M3, but I actually like this choice. It wouldn't make my top 6, but I wouldn't like this choice. Number 5, the E36. You know, when I was a kid, I loved it, the E36 M3. Couldn't afford one. The closest I got to that was an E36 buying used when I first started in real estate as a commercial real estate broker. I got an E36. It was a 4-door, so it was a 328. At that time, it was 323. It was the base model 328 and M3. So I couldn't afford a used M3, so I got an E28 with the sport package, 5-speed manual, great car. So E36 is a great choice. I don't think it would make my top 6, sorry. I do love that car. I still would love to have an Astoro Blue E36 M3 at some point, either coupe or sedan with a manual transmission. Maybe it's number 6, but I don't know that it hits the top 5. So as we go through this video, there's one choice that I strongly disagree with, and then one car that I think is amazing that he left off altogether. So let's go through the list. So his 4th choice was the classics, the 2002 and the BMW E9. I agree. That certainly should be on the top 5. No worries there. Here's where I start to differ. Choice number 3, the M2 competition, or that new CS. Doug says that, you know, this is going away, that, you know, we're going to have hybrid cars someday, electric cars, and the M2 is a very pure car and do well in the future. I think it will, but I think there's a much better choice here, and would be the 1 Series M. So when Doug, this is where I guess I strongly disagree. Doug came to my house, did the 1 Series M, and it was his favorite car. And in videos after that, for years, he said, I don't know why I don't own one. And I kind of started my YouTube channel off of that. If you knew me before, I was on the Rob Ferretti Super Speeders podcast for about 3 years. And then I kind of started my YouTube channel as Doug came to do my 1M. I thought that would be a good send-off. Now, Doug maybe had 100,000 subscribers back in 2017, nowhere near his millions of subscribers he has today. So I differ on you, Doug, on that. I still think, now I've owned an M2. I even have and a 1M at the same time. I still have the 1M. You can see a comparison of both on this channel. And the M2, the competition, which I reviewed, the CS, which I filmed, they're fantastic cars. If you want a modern BMW, that's the car for you. But if you want a better BMW, it's the 1M. And I've owned them both at the same time. So I've driven them back to back. And you can see in my comparison test, which I'll link over here somewhere. And the biggest difference between those cars is the 1M has hydraulic steering and the M2s have electric steering. And if you drive them back to back, it's so obvious the difference. Even though, listen, I'd love to buy another M2. I'll probably have a CS at some point or an M2 competition, but it won't be as good as the 1M. And I think the market has shown that. The 1M goes in value, up in value every year, and the M2 Comp, the M2 CS go down in value every year. Now, there's thousands of those if you add all those cars together, even though the M2 CS is limited. But the 1M, they only made 740 copies here in the United States, and they go up in value every year. It's a very good place to put your money long term. So I'm going to disagree with you, Doug, that the 1M is better than the M2 Comp. I think you're saying that the M2 Comp now is so good you prefer it over the 1M. That's fine. But I'm telling you, the one, if you drove it back to back, and you're welcome to come back here to do it, the 1M is better, the hydraulic steering. And still the modern BMWs, even this car or the M2 Comp, they become sports cars in Sport Plus mode. In regular mode, it's just a regular 2 Series, just a regular BMW. This is just a regular 3 Series. The 1M, whether you're in sport mode or not, is hair on fire all the time. It's got that shorter wheelbase. It's a little bit lighter. And that N54 engine, you can mod, make big power. It needs some sound, so I have a full exhaust on mine. You can watch all my 1M videos here. And you could not drive those cars back to back and pick an M2 variant. You wouldn't. And you're welcome to do that. Now, you did put a caveat in here that as long as they keep making M2s that are rear drive manual transmissions, the latest and greatest M2 would be the one to have. And I agree with that. So in 2022, that may be pushed back now. So who knows? It might be 2023. They're going to have an all new 2 Series. And then we're going to repeat that formula again. It's M2 Competition, M2 CS, and probably an M2 CSL. So that's going to depreciate this current value down. But what's not going to depreciate is the 1M. The 1M is a moment in time car, a 1 year only car. There is no 1 Series anymore. I know in Europe and other places there's still a 1 Series. There isn't here. So when they stop making a car total, like if they stop making the 2 Series, the best 2 Series models would go up in value. The 1M is going to continue to go up in value. Your second choice, the E30 M3, I can't argue with that. I would love to drive and review an E30 M3. If you're local to Bergen County, New Jersey, you're willing to make the trip up here. I live very close to BMW headquarters in Woodcliff Lake. I would love to drive and film your E30 M3. It would be an honor. I'd love to drive that car. S14 engine would be great. Now, number one he had, and I don't, this car is definitely in the top 5 for me, maybe even in the top 3. I don't know that it's number 1, the E39 M5. Now, that's what got me into BMWs. When I was a kid, I had a friend that had an E39 M5, and he let me buy it, drive it. And I wish I could afford to buy it, even though they were cheap back then. That got me all into German cars because I was always in American cars. I grew up on Mustangs and Camaros, and I had Z28s and Mustang GTs. My friend at hockey got a E39 M5. He let me drive it. I'm like, oh my God, this V8 is way better. And after that, it's been all German cars. And I've had over 100 manual transmission cars. So I definitely think that's probably in the top 2 or 3, but I don't know that it's number 1. So the big glaring, so what did he miss? What is the big glaring car that he missed? Anybody want to guess? The E46 M3, how can you miss that car? Like I said in the beginning, I've owned 2 of them. They're just phenomenal cars. First of all, the E39 M5 is the president, CEO, CFO's car. It's a great highway car. So if you're going from, where I live in New Jersey, you're going from New York to Philadelphia, New York to Washington, D.C., New York to Florida, E35 M5 would be a phenomenal car to do it in. It's a great highway car. It's a torquey V8 motor. You can fit your friends in the backseat. It's a 4-door car, and it can be an everyday car. I don't know with the 3 feet of snow we have here, but 9 months a year, it could definitely be your everyday car. But the E46 M3 is the sports car. It's again a moment in time car. I think it's going to go down in history. It's going up in value already. I've owned numerous E46 M3s. I tell you to buy them in almost every video. How can that not be in the top 6? Come on, it's not like a top 2 car. So to me, I think my favorite out of all those cars that I mentioned that I've owned, the E90 M3, the multiple E46 M3s, the M2, the Z3 M Coupe. So those were honorable mentions, the 1 Series M, the Z3 M Coupe. I would rank them, the 1 Series M is the best, E46 M3 would be next. And then I don't know what comes after that. Probably maybe the E90 M3, and then I think I'd put the M2 and the Z3 M Coupe somewhere in there. So those are my top 5. My top 5 you probably don't care about, but that's my top 5. And again, I haven't driven an E30 M3. Who knows? That could be your number 1 or number 2. I think the E36 M3 is a great car. If you can't afford an E46 M3, maybe that's number 6 for me. You go in there first, or the E39 M5, somewhere in that. And the E39 M5, actually, I probably have higher. I might have in the top 3 of those choices that I gave you. I can't believe that the E46 M3 was off the list. Come on. And I disagree with you with the 1M and 1.2. You can't go wrong buying an M2. I had one for many years in 2016, got one of the first ones. I actually had one of the first M2 competitions, but I didn't take delivery because I didn't think it was that much better because my car, trading it in, $25,000 difference than an M2 CS in the trade-in value of buying new. But again, you can't go wrong with an M2. You can't go wrong with the E39 M5. Of course, the classics, the E9, the 2002, even a manual transmission X5. So let me know what you think. What is your top 6 BMWs ever? Leave it in the comments below. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you next time.